Find more great shows or join the team at sport-social.co.uk.
Hello, welcome back to another special player analysis show here on the Masterclass. I'm your host, Haider Rubbani. I'm joined by Jeremy Smith. Again, this is probably the fifth or sixth time now Jeremy is on the show. He is our French football expert, French football writer as well. Today we're speaking Boubacar Kamara from Marseille. Jeremy, welcome back. I'm sure you're really busy at the moment. I'm sure everybody's dropping you messages saying come on their podcast to discuss French football players. So welcome back on the show. And how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. It's nice to have a break from Arsenal being linked with Lyon midfielders.
I bet you've done is it Bruno Guimaraes? I'm sure you've done one recently on that.
That's the latest one, yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. But look, we're going to talk about Kamara today, Jeremy, and we're going to go through the latest news as well. He has been linked with other clubs, so we will touch on that, and you'll be able to give an insight into what you've heard as well and what direction he will be going, whether it's now or a pre-contract signing. We'll talk about his strengths and weaknesses, and we'll discuss, sort of the conclusion on as well, and we'll see how he fits into Man United's system in that conclusion. But Jeremy, let's start with the latest news. So Kamara is able to sign a pre-contract, isn't he, with players outside of France. He's been linked to Manchester United. There was reports coming out that him and Ruben Neves were two midfielders that United want, both of them. He's been linked with Leeds most recently. We've seen with Newcastle United as well. I mean, they're linked with everyone with all that big money. Less we talk about Newcastle, the better, because I'm not particularly fond of that ownership. But what have you heard in regards to Kamara, and is there legitimate, sort of, let's say, reports that he could end up on the red side of Manchester?
I think he's kind of up for grabs. I mean, there hasn't been any particular sort of concrete reports. He's, as you said, he's one of those players that probably for the last few transfer windows and this one as well is linked with a lot of clubs without anything going that much further. The weird thing is that previously Marseille looked very keen to get rid of him and cash in, and he wasn't that happy because, I mean, not happy with them. He's very happy at Marseille, and that's why he was a bit miffed that the club were sort of putting him for sale. And it's a strange one because Marseille, unlike so many French clubs, they don't particularly have a great sort of tradition of bringing through players from their youth system. So he's one of the kind of rare successes. And so, very popular with the Marseille fans, and obviously very happy with being at the club. So previously he was a little bit annoyed that he got the impression they were trying to get rid of him. But the fact is that, like a lot of French clubs, but more so than many of them, Marseille do have financial issues. They need to sell before they can buy. And that's why they were possibly looking to offload last summer. So I think that was sort of a factor in any potential contract extension talks breaking down. There was a little bit of tension, I think, between his people and the club's people, which has sort of thawed a bit. And that's why I think he's going to be one of the names that are talked about a lot this month, because, as I said, Marseille could do with the money. There's a very good chance that he'll leave at the latest this summer. And obviously he's now a free agent. So if he were to leave in the summer, it would be for free, which doesn't help Marseille a huge amount. So I think that the club would be prepared to cash in now, and possibly because of his love for the club, he might be willing to look at offers elsewhere if it means being able to help Marseille a little bit out in the process.
Last time we spoke about him and Soumaré, didn't we? Soumaré is now at Leicester, and we were both discussing that we didn't really see Soumaré has talent. We didn't really see what the hype was more for Soumaré, and you were talking about Kamara at the time. Since we last spoke, and this was last season, how has Kamara played this season? I'll be completely honest with you. I haven't watched much of Marseille here and there, so I can't really give an opinion. Obviously, you are a French football expert, but has Kamara improved on sort of the level that he was last time we spoke?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Soumare, the issue was that there was a lot of hype, but he wasn't even playing that often, and certainly wasn't commanding a place in the team. And the second half or the last few months of last season, he was a huge factor in Lille going on to win the title. So he sort of did really step up a level, I think. I'm not sure I would talk about Kamara as making one of those big steps, but that's not a criticism because I think he was already showing a lot more consistency and sort of backing up the potential that people were talking about, whereas Soumare hadn't yet done that. So yeah, Kamara, I mean, I think he's 22 now. He's already got, probably around 200 games, all competitions under his belt, which classically that's one of the advantages that young French players have because they're blooded early. They've got that experience. He's already captained Marseille a few times now, so I think there's just been a very steady trajectory. And although he's not maybe hyped as much as some midfielders, I think it's just because he's always been seen as sort of a very steady kind of hand on the tiller and a quality player that people respect. And maybe because of that, maybe slightly underappreciated. I don't know. Like I said, he is always linked with other clubs, so I suppose his talent is recognised. But yeah, it just hasn't. He hasn't quite had that hype that Soumare had for some reason, but it certainly doesn't mean that he's any less of a player.
Absolutely. And let's sort of talk about his best position because that has come up before. We were speaking off air as well. He can play centre back. He can play. He does play defensive midfielder. Where do you think he excels more? And if he does join, let's say Manchester United, he will be playing in a Ralph Rangnick system. It'll be a 4-2-2-2, so he'll probably play midfield. Maybe United go to back three if he came in. But where do you see him excelling the most?
It's really hard to say. I mean, it's hard to even say whether he's a centre back who can also play defensive midfield or defensive midfielder who can also play centre back. I think in the past he's talked about preferring centre back. Personally, I think I prefer him as a defensive midfielder, and that's kind of been one of the issues with him because no one can sort of place him and say, this is the player we want in this position because there's no debate about his place in the team. It's just a debate about where he's played. Yeah, as I said, I think he prefers centre back, but I think because of his actual footballing ability, that's why he's been pushed forward a little bit more. And for me, I mean, he's relatively tall without being, I think he's just under 6 foot. Strong enough, decent body strength, but he doesn't sort of stand out as a big unit or anything. And maybe for that reason as well, I see him a little bit more as a defensive midfielder, a little bit more mobile, and like I said, maybe more comfortable on the ball than you'd sort of expect of many centre backs. So possibly that's why I'm sort of leaning towards that position a little bit more. But yeah, he's certainly capable in both positions. I just feel, especially, I mean, I know Ligue 1 is a very physical league as well, but Premier League and you expect, for example, great heading ability, and while it's not bad for him, that's another reason why I push him maybe a little bit more forwards with a little bit less sort of onus on that aerial ability than you'd expect if he was playing centre back.
I agree with that, and I kind of look at Koundé as another player who, if he came to the Premier League, I know another French player that's obviously at Sevilla, but I know he's been linked to Manchester United and Chelsea in the past. But I look at him and think, centre back in the Premier League, he's not the tallest. He's a fantastic footballer. I think when I look at Kamara, I think the same thing. And we'll bring up some statistics now, actually, Jeremy. So on the screen, guys, we've got Kamara's rankings per 90 minutes from FBref. So let's just go through a few of those really key ones here, Jeremy. So you've got passes attempted, 93rd percentile. That's up there with the best in Europe. You've got pass completion, 92nd percentile. So I just want to break down these two statistics here when we talk about strengths and weaknesses. So you can look at these statistics in two ways. You can say that he's a player who is very comfortable on the ball. But you can also say, look, he's playing defensive midfielder. He's playing 5-yard passes. So, how sort of adventurous is he going to be, or how penetrating is he going to be from that position? So what do you sort of see when you watch him obviously play regularly, and then you also look at the statistics that back up those assumptions.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think that observation is kind of important for him, I think, because a lot goes through him. You know, if the Marseille keeper or defense get the ball, he's going to drop back and make himself available to kind of start the team off on another attack. But he's not going to sort of, you know, spin round and beat however many men, or I was going to say not look for a long pass. I mean, he has got a long pass on him, but I think he's a lot more about, you know, short, sharp transitions. You know, take the ball, comfortable on it, you know, shield it from maybe the first press, and then give it to more mobile players around him. You know, whether it's a mercurial talent like Payet, or even, you know, someone a little bit more combative but more sort of forward thinking like Guendouzi. I think he's just that sort of metronome in midfield that you can rely on to take the ball, to protect the ball, and then sort of give and go very quickly. So yeah, I'd say it's mostly short passes, probably not sort of high risk or low percentage passes, but, you know, it doesn't make it any less important, I guess.
Especially as a defensive midfielder. I mean, I kind of want to link it back to Manchester United now. So you obviously, you're a Brighton fan. You've seen United, and United aren't a particularly good side at the minute in terms of, you know, there's a lot of imbalance in the team. I think one of the areas of Manchester United's weakest areas, and everyone knows this, is in midfield. You've got Fred and McTominay. I mean, for example, you know, when you're looking at someone like Kamara, does he solve that issue of United not having that out and out maybe defensive midfielder, someone that's mobile, someone that can break up play? And we'll talk about his defensive stats in a little bit as well. Someone that's able to, you know, sort of start attacks and you know, really shield and allow the players ahead of him to flourish and to go and do what they want to do, knowing that they've got someone back there that, should there be, for example, a counter attack or a transition, you know, he's good enough and he's mobile enough to be able to stop that.
I think that's probably where he's at his best, sort of shielding the defense, kind of almost told not to push forward too much, because that's when he maybe could be exposed if the other, you know, there's fast transition from the other team. But yeah, just kind of patrolling, I guess, the sort of back half of the middle third, if you like, and yeah, providing a lot of support to the defense, because obviously that's his kind of area of strength. But, you know, he's not just a destroyer, he's a ball winner and a ball carrier in terms of you know, being, I guess, the first line of the offense, if you want.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely very, very, very interesting. I mean, can you see him? I mean, like, I look at Marseille and I think, you know, a good attacking side. Can you see him, though, as someone that can play with a partner at Man United? I mean, does he do that at Marseille, or is he playing more in a lone role? Because that's something that, you know, should he come to Man United, it'll be quite interesting to see that. Would United then go to a 4-3-3? Would they stay with a 4-2-2-2? You know, would they have that player there that could play in a single pivot or a double pivot?
He's played under Villas-Boas and Sampaoli, so he sort of played in more or less every, and then Garcia before that, who's a bit more rigid. But, you know, between them, he's probably played in every single formation you can think of. I mean, Sampaoli, he could end up doing that in one match. So yeah, he's played in a sort of, as well, I think recently it was a 4-1-4-1, and he was the one in the middle. They've lined up in 3-3-3-1, and then the kind of standard 4-2-3-1 as well. So he's able to play in any position. He's able to play with a partner. I think if he is playing with well, whether it's in a 2 or a 3, as I said, I think he's best suited not to be one of the ones pushing forward. I think he can add a little bit. It's just that's the one thing where I think he can be sort of exposed if kind of play breaks down and the other team attacks quickly. That's not necessarily his biggest strength, sort of turning and you know, speed, I guess, isn't his biggest strength. But
yeah,
certainly in terms of formations and his experience of being able to adapt to different formations, I think, again, because of who he's been playing under, he's probably well ahead of his years in that sense.
That's a great thing to actually hear, because I would say this current Manchester United squad, the footballing IQ isn't exactly through the roof. Let's put it that way. And it's interesting to hear that a player that's played that, because look, Sampaoli is an absolute, he's an absolute maverick when it comes to football. AVB as well, a decent tactician, really Garcia. So the fact that he's picked up at such a young age as well. You mentioned he was 22. I didn't realize he was quite that young. He feels like he's been around forever, doesn't it? And I think that's probably one of the positives. You did mention he's not really a flashy name. He gets mentioned from time to time, but he could almost be a bit of a hidden gem for whoever picks him up for such a low fee. There'll probably be a sign-on fee, and wages will probably be a fair amount. But no, he sounds like a player who almost comes in and does the job, does it consistently 7 out of 10, every single week. But I do want to bring up some of these defensive statistics here, Jeremy. So the key one I want to sort of pick out, look, his tackles are really good, 81st percentile. Interceptions not bad, 43rd. Blocks pretty average, 52nd. But pressures are low in the 30th percentile. Now, when you're looking at Rangnick's system and sort of what is expected, you're going to have quite a few pressures. There are going to be triggers. There's going to be counter pressing. That's what he wants from his side. So where does Kamara sort of fit into there? Because you mentioned mobility perhaps isn't one of his strengths, or speed, shall we say. Can he do this side of the game to a high level?
I think he reads the game very well. So you'd sort of hope that he's kind of most of the time in the right place at the right time. But I guess because he is more defensive minded, and Sampaoli's teams are sort of set up to win the ball high and quick, arguably the onus isn't even so much on him to do that. It's on the likes of maybe Guendouzi, for example, who's going to be a little bit further up the field and obviously is kind of known as a real kind of, bites your legs sort of harrier of the opposition players, that, perhaps that isn't his main responsibility, and that's why the percentage is relatively low. But as I said, because of the reading of the game, I think you'd still hope that he's where he should be. But when the opposition get the ball, he's probably just dropped a little bit further back, and so the onus is less on him to be doing that kind of pressurizing.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I want to see from a player in that position is I want to see them disciplined. I want to see them understanding, sort of reading the game, good awareness, a good passer as well, comfortable in possession. How is he when someone presses him? Let's say you play against a team with a very sort of aggressive first wave press, and obviously as a defensive midfielder, centre backs are key, but defensive midfielder is key as well. Is he confident? We've seen with his passing statistics are very, very high, and where he ranks in Europe. But is he comfortable being pressed, and is he comfortable starting attacks?
Yeah, he's sort of very calm. He's accomplished on the ball. Like I said, he's not going to do anything stupid like try to bomb past half of the opposition team. But I think he sort of knows his qualities and he knows his limitations. So if he needs to sort of protect the ball, use his body strength to shield it from the opposition, and even if it means sort of, I don't know, dropping the ball back to the keeper rather than looking to push forward, I think he's kind of got a very good judgment of what to do with the ball and when. But yeah, he's comfortable sort of being pressurized. But there's other people who are kind of, he knows that there'll be others around him who are expected to do a little bit more with the ball than he is.
Yeah, no, and that's an important skill as well, isn't it? Knowing I'm not going to say limitations, but let's call it limitations because I can't think of another word for it. But let's say knowing your limitations, but also playing smart, playing simple but effective, essentially. And that sounds like what sort of player he is. Where does he rank in terms of defensive midfielders in, let's say, Ligue 1, and let's say maybe compare him to some in the Premier League as well? Where would he rank? I mean, he's obviously a talented and accomplished player. And do you see someone like Manchester United taking? I would say it's a low risk, to be honest, because low fee, or even it could even be a free. He's obviously a young player as well who can be developed. He's not a flashy name, but I think it's like a low risk, possibly high reward sort of player.
I think for all those reasons, I'd agree with that. I mean, again, in Ligue 1, he's just been quietly very effective. Obviously, it's very hard to judge anything to do with Marseille with a level head because everything about them is so sort of, black and white. There's very little middle ground. Either they're all amazing or all the worst players in the world, and either they're going to win the Champions League or they're going to get relegated. It's everything sort of peaks and troughs, but he is sort of a bit of a level head in the middle of all of that. And I think he's quietly up there amongst the best defensive midfielders, but there'll always be certain names that are popping up and maybe will get a little bit more headlines, like Soumaré last year. Like he's not a defensive midfielder, but I did another one of these today about Pat Matar, for example, who's obviously on his way to England in the summer as well. I'd say in terms of Liga, he's right up there because he's very comfortable. It's his home. It's where he's been playing now for a good sort of 3-4 years already. In terms of Premier League, I find it very hard to judge midfielders because it can really go both ways. For every N'Golo Kante, you've got I hesitate to say it because I do like him, but I guess so. Although I suppose he did well at Southampton.
Yeah.
I was going to say maybe Benjamin Stambouli, someone like that.
I think
the difference is that, as I said, I've said before, I think Liga is just as physical, I think, as the Premier League. But I think the difference is the Premier League is more sort of non-stop, more kind of gung-ho. And I think that midfielders in particular struggle to adjust to that because they don't get any kind of breather. I think Kamara's got all of the physical capabilities to adjust. It's just a question of how quickly he does it and whether he does it to the levels expected of a Man United, for example. But I definitely think that he's got the footballing qualities and intelligence to succeed. I just, he's, despite the experience that he's got in terms of the number of matches, he is still young, he is still learning. And so, I think if United are prepared to kind of invest in him, and I guess at the same time, if he's prepared to, go from being a top flight first team regular and captain to maybe more of a bit part player, at least for his first season, then I think it definitely could work.
Yeah, to end, that's a really fantastic point about not expecting too much from him as well. If he comes to Man United, he's not going to fix all of our problems. He's 22 years old. He's coming from a league, like you said, that's physical, maybe not as quick. And I think one of the concerns I do have about him coming to Manchester United is that move maybe too big at this stage in his career?
I think it's possible. I feel like you mentioned Newcastle earlier, and I think the likes of Newcastle, Everton, maybe even
Leeds,
Spurs, and certainly Marseille, and to use a French example, I think they've got this kind of, they're constantly looking for the Messiah who's going to come in and transform them to the team that they think they should be. United obviously have got slightly more entitlement in recent years to call themselves that team that they should be. And so if you're looking for Kamara to be the player that is the person who's going to click and make United title contenders suddenly all over again, then yeah, I think that's misplaced. But I think if you're looking to sort of overhaul 2 or 3 positions and kind of start investing in really quality youth and give them the chance to really fulfill their potential, then I think he could become an important sort of cog in the machine.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Look, Man United are probably going to lose 2 or 3 midfielders this summer. I'm looking at Kamara as a Matic replacement. I think that's a nice sort of transitioning an older player out and bringing in a really young, talented player. And I think him, along with a couple more, could be some really shrewd business for Man United. And look, there's talent out there, isn't there, Jeremy? That's available. Ligue 1 is just absolutely littered with talent. And I know a lot of Man United fans would love United to go and invest in someone like this. Not someone big flashy name, £50 million, someone who's £6 million, really great value and potentially a lot of upside. But look, Jeremy, thank you very much for joining me today. Where can all the listeners find your articles and your fantastic work?
So I'm on Twitter at JeremySmith98, and then often sort of podcasting for either French Football Weekly or Get French Football News. And otherwise, during transfer windows, you can find me all over the place.
During transfer windows, Jeremy comes out of his hibernation and he's just everywhere. I even saw today, like obviously we do chat, don't we? Like if there's any French football news or whatever, I'll drop you a message, with the Pochettino. Actually, I want to finish on that. Mauricio Pochettino, is he going to leave PSG this summer and is he going to join Man United? In your opinion, this is just your opinion, but this is just Jeremy's opinion, by the way, guys. So don't attack him when he doesn't sign for Man United.
I can definitely see him leaving PSG. I guess it depends how the rest of the season goes, but frankly, even if it goes well, I could see him leaving. I don't think he seems happy there. I don't think anyone seems happy with him. Frankly, I think it's not his fault at all. I think it's a completely impossible job. As long as certain people above him are still there and getting away with everything. And there's always been that link with United. He's never hidden his desire to go there. So I can definitely see it happening. I think the question is whether he will, a couple of weeks ago, I sort of, I did a thread taken from L'Equipe on all the issues in the background at PSG. And probably it was kind of 50-50 from all United fans. Half of them saying, see, it's terrible at PSG, come to United, we need you, we'll look after you. And the other half saying, see, I told you Pochettino's rubbish, we don't want him anywhere near the club. So I don't know what the answer is, but I think probably it depends how you felt about Pochettino before he even joined PSG. I mean, you look at Tuchel and you look at Emery, I don't think anyone should be judged on what they do or don't do at PSG. So I hope that, I quite like him, so I hope his stock hasn't fallen too much by the time he leaves PSG. And I hope people look at it sensibly and just say, it's such a kind of head case of a club that it's unfair to judge anyone based on that.
Absolutely. We had that conversation, didn't we? You can't really judge a manager on what they've done at PSG. I'm of the view that I think United could be a really good club for him. If you're bringing in young talent like Kamara, I'd like to see him and the likes under a manager like Pochettino, who has a proven track record we saw at Tottenham. Look, Jeremy, thank you very much for joining me. Guys, as always, make sure you give Jeremy a follow at Jeremy Smith 98. Give us a follow at TF Mastercast. Give myself a follow on at Haider_Rubbani. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you all next time.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.